Awesome. So we'll give you all a few minutes to pop any questions you have. And then if not, we can go through like tips, tricks of DocGens. I don't see any coming in. So if you all want to just ask them throughout, that's fine too. So if you want to share your screen and go through tips and tricks, I can jump in as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get started. Okay, so just want to confirm you guys can see my monitor here.
Yeah, they should be able to.
Okay. So this is just in our sandbox environment. So we do a lot of like testing in here. So if you see anything crazy, that is why. DocGens are going to be pretty simple to generate. So we'll go over that first. And when you're generating a document, it's something that you need within that project, pulling in possibly specific client information, insurance details if we come over here to a collection section, and you can generate a letter of representation, things like that. So the widget will look like this, and it'll have a field here for you to choose the template. If you have multiple to choose from, it'll appear as a list and you can scroll through them and pick the one that you need. And from there, you'd click generate. Since I've already generated this one, I'll just select regenerate. And it is going to pull in data from this UM/UIM insurance card. It showed me that it was done and it highlighted yellow. So if I click on it, it'll open up in a preview window and I can take a look. It's going to be coded to pull today's date, a fax number, an address block here, and then some client and details about the case. And then you have your standard language here. We could put in the attorney's name down at the bottom and have in your logo in the header. If I wanted to edit this, I could select this box here with the pencil icon, and it'll open up in Microsoft Word. One of my favorite things is that it gives you a save in place feature. So here is my Microsoft Word window. I can go ahead and just say here, today is, Wednesday. If I do a save, you'll see here it says saving and then saved. It'll save in place and show back in Filevine. So there's my edit, and I can remove that as well. So this is that save in place feature, which makes it super cool. You're not having to download that document to your computer, re-upload it. It is all saved in Filevine. So from there, you have a couple options once you generate that document. You can download it. You can preview, which is going to open up in that separate window. You can email it, you can fax it, create a share link, Vine sign if you have it. You can make a note out of this document and push it to the activity feed. You can rename it if I wanted to put a different date. It does timestamp it, so that's that. You can move or copy it to a different project or different folder. You can apply a hashtag, edit it, which is the same thing we did here. Or you can update it by, say you downloaded it and you made some updates to the version on your computer, you can update and replace it with a new version, and properties will give you all of the details. So super simple to generate and use. There are those properties for you, a little bit delayed, but you can see all the different versions. If there's been a share link created, that would show here. And it gives you the same options to apply a tag and so on and so forth. One thing to note, so DocGens can be created just about anywhere in your sections in Filevine. So whether it be an intake or an insurance, you can have a DocGen. One thing to note is your placement and where you're generating it, you will have some restrictions on the data that can be pulled in. For instance, if I'm generating a document in intake or in case summary, both of these are static sections, meaning you click on the section and the data is available right away. rather than going to a collection section where you have a Rolodex of card items here, one for UIM, one for liability, one for health. It's not going to be able to pull data from specifically this card, this UIM, if I'm generating a letter in intake. However, if I'm generating a letter here in the collection section, I can pull from any of the static sections. And that reason being, so for example, we generated this LOR to State Farm. It's not going to pull in Allstate's claim data. It's not going to pull in health insurance data or any other data from another card. It pulls from within that card item. So that's super cool. You can also see that document here as a preview. It is locked because I still have it open. I can close out of that. We'll close this preview. Okay. So we went over generating a DocGen. In order to generate the DocGen and have it available for staff to generate, it has to be built and placed, right? So to do that, if you are an admin in your org and you have advanced options here, so if you go to the main menu, go to advanced, two things, this is a two-step process. You'll need to go to customs editor first to place that widget. So this here is called a widget. You need to place that in order to go forward and build your document. To do that, let's say you pick out your template here. Again, this is our sandbox, so it's a little crazy, but we're working in our personal injury. Say in intake, I wanted to generate a fee agreement down at the bottom. Very long section. So we go to widget instead of field. This would be like your normal date or text field or person field. Think of fields as where you're capturing data and widgets are performing some kind of action for you. So you have a couple different options here of widgets, and you'll see doc generation and doc generation multi-template. I always recommend using the multi-template. I think that is just best practice in general because this single option here, the doc generation, only allows you to upload a single doc. And once you generate a doc with it, you can't delete it. It can't actually be deleted at all. You can replace the document that is being used there, but I don't think that's super helpful. And then at that point, you're going to have a bunch of single buttons, whereas you could just condense them and use the multi. Using the multi, you're able to delete a template that is no longer needed. You can upload new ones. You can just add to it and just condense them again all in one widget, and it just looks cleaner on the front end. That's what I think personally, but so again, you'll choose that multi, give it a prompt. I like to keep this pretty general, especially if you're going to have multiple different kinds of letters here. Say, for example, you're sending a letter to medical providers and it just needs to be something broad. So we have record and billing requests. We could have another DocGen up here that's just generate letters to medical providers. So broad names. It'll automatically generate that field selector. You can auto apply a tag. Again, if it's broad, I wouldn't necessarily apply a tag to everything. And then you can apply, if you have a folder structure already built in, you can pre-designate where those documents that you generate will be saved. And select that there, and then obviously placing it where you'd like it to be in that section. So once you have the widget placed,
sorry, there's a question. Yeah. So for folks that are sending out their DocGens via VineSign, Nikki has sent some, and when the client signs, it automatically puts the signed version into Filevine. But if it's generated and placed into a subfolder, the signed version is not in the same subfolder. Is there a way for them to get the signed document to go back to the same place?
That does make sense. I see your question. I don't think there is a way for us to be able to code that as a pre-designated file saving. I think maybe within VineSign there might be a setting. We'll go over, it is pretty easy to move documents. So if we go here and you click this little button, you can use a drag and drop kind of mechanism here to put it in the folder you'd like it to be. I know it is kind of tedious, but I don't think there's a way for us to designate where the signed copy goes back to. Okay, and mass DocGens, we can absolutely go over that. That's a good question. Let's go over this basic. So we're placing, imagine we just placed the widget and now we can go to DocGen setup. And it'll ask you, you likely only have a couple project types and your orgs. Again, our sandbox has a ton. Here it is, our PI template. Once you have the widget created, it'll give you an option to choose which section you're looking for. And so I can choose case summary. If I have multiple, it'll give me another drop down to choose which one. In medicals, we only have one, so it pre-designates to that one. Same thing in insurance. So from here, there is a field list button right here, and this is specific to that section and that widget. So I wouldn't be able to use this same field list for DocGen and case summary. It regenerates and it has different restrictions and available codes that you can use. It'll generate that field list and it'll give you all of the codes that you can pull in. So this one's already uploaded. I can click that on the preview and open it in Word and use that save in place feature. So if I needed to update a code, this is how I would do it. Or if I even simply just needed to update the verbiage, you can do that here as well and save it back. So we can go to our field list. They do take a while to load. Just keeping that in mind, it is pulling thousands of codes. You'll see how tiny this little scroll bar here is. A tip and trick to navigate this field list is using, if you're on a Mac, Control F, if it loads. So many codes. So Control F or Command F to use that search feature, and you can search for exactly what you're looking for. It'll pop up here, and general rule of thumb, if I'm looking for someone's name, I'll type out the field. For example, if I know I have a field attorney or if I have a field defendant, whatever it may be, and I'm looking for their name, I'll type in full name after that, and it'll give me the appropriate code. You can look for date field, you can look for just about anything. So if you look at your section and you know that you need to pull this into the document, I can search for that in my field list.
The only, or one of the caveats here is that if you've built it into a collection section, you can't pull all of the data from another collection section in. You can pull like general information similar to your vitals of like averages or things like that, but you wouldn't be able to pull in like adjuster name if you have it stored in a different collection section.
Yep. Thank you. So that is how here you get those codes. And I should have showed before I closed it. To copy the code, there is a little icon that will show up next to it right here. It looks like a little clipboard, and you'll click that to copy it rather than highlighting. It'll just give you a weird format if you highlight, and it kind of copies the color behind it. So using the clipboard will give you a nice copy and paste into your Word doc. Again, that save in place feature. So once you're done editing, you would save and it would all go back into Filevine. That's the standard stuff. We can hop into mass DocGens if anybody doesn't have any other questions.
None have come up so far.
Okay. So mass DocGens here. You'll want to choose your project type if you have multiple, and then you use a report. So these are all the reports we have in our sandbox, but basically you would build the report first. And something you would use a mass DocGen for would maybe be you are moving office locations and you need to update all of your clients or all of your contacts with your new address. So what I would do then is go to my report builder and run a list of projects or a list of contacts even. That might be messy if you have duplicate contacts, but run a list of projects and pull in that project contact and be able to get their details, and then you can apply the report here. And let's just pick one. We'll say generate a doc for all projects with this type in case summary, and we're going to use this fee agreement, for example, and generate a W-9. So it gives me different options. If we look at insurance, it gives me options of what I'm able to generate a letter on. So you might want to, in order to do this, you would probably want to go and add that document to, if it is like an updated address, for example, for your office location. I would go to DocGen setup. Let me open that in another tab. Go into case summary and generate, I don't know, we could create a new widget maybe and just call it general letters. I would add in my template here for the letter notifying the client of my new office address, and then be able to select that here if I had it uploaded. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? And once I have that document selected, I would queue the generation. Where do the docs go once generated? They appear in the project, and I believe it'll also show up and be able to mass print them all, I believe. And then you're able to, they'll be able to mass, because you're coding it to pull in the client's data. So it'll show up in the project in the widget where it's placed, and then you'll be able to select it and print it and go forward. I 50 client projects, and the letter goes into each person's doc, and then I can email from there. You can email from there. Good question. You're very welcome. Any other questions? Does anybody have a document that they need help troubleshooting?
I'll give folks the ability to talk. That way, if you just want to unmute yourself and maybe ask a question, you can do that. Or again, we can help you troubleshoot any issues that you've had with DocGens. And I know we talked about DocGens only being able to pull from one collection section. Oh, sorry. And so we can talk about that if you have questions about what that looks like or workarounds for that. If you need any additional tips and tricks, just let us know. Okay, I see. I'm new to Filevine and I have no clue how to generate a settlement statement. Is there a video tutorial or doc on how to do it? Great question.
That is a great question. Absolutely. So settlement statements are a little bit different from DocGens. They're typically going to be a fusion. And what that looks like, fusions are best generated in a static section. So we use a static settlement section here, capturing all of the settlement data. And down below is where I would house a settlement statement. Let me find, I did previously build one. It would be in this project. Yeah, okay, so we have a version of a settlement breakdown, and we can build this out for you. So again, it's a fusion, which fusions sound complicating, and they can be depending on the document, but essentially you build the report with all of the data that you need to pull into your document, and then we code the document and upload that as your kind of your template of the fusion report. So lots of pieces, moving parts that go into it, but this is what it looks like. Again, your logo up here would be in the header. We pull in the client's name, settlement data, your fees, and total to client. So the reason it's a fusion is because we're pulling data from medicals, from liens, and from expenses, which are each collection section. So it's kind of limited of the data that you can pull. But we're able to get in the provider name and the total billed, and then sum that amount up here, and then able to use, it's generally built in Excel. So if I open and edit, here.
And there's someone else asking, how do you pull in multiple settlements in the settlements tab into the same DocGen? So maybe you can, we might.
Good question. So it goes into an Excel like this, and I can edit it, and again use that save in place feature to pull it back into Filevine. But because it's in Excel, we're able to use some formula math, whereas if it was a Word version, we'd kind of be restricted on what calculations we're able to do. But this is the layout of just our example here. And in our, so answering your question, let me see here. Speaking of settlements, how would you pull in multiple? So you can, it kind of depends, and each firm is a little bit different on how they do their disbursements, right? That's usually my first question to you is, are you doing partial disbursement? So are you settling the liability claim and then dispersing, and then settling the UM/UIM claim and then dispersing, or you wait until all claims are settled and doing a lump sum disbursement? We have two different sections here, settlements and settlement. So settlement allows you to do up to 3 disbursements, and you're able to pick which type of settlement that is. We can customize the drop-down options, and you're capturing each of those amounts here. Give me 1 second. This does, doing the multiple disbursements does kind of make it tricky to pull in all of the settlements into one statement, especially if you do partial distributions. The reason being is that we're pulling in medicals, liens, and expenses, and it's not going to be able to determine what has previously been paid out and already dispersed on, and you can't, it doesn't allow you to like distinguish if this was on settlement statement 1, don't pull this into settlement statement 2. A workaround would maybe going in after you disperse that first settlement, going into Filevine into each of these sections into those provider cards and marking a 0 balance. So if it shows 0 here, then you know I don't need to disperse to someone anymore. I can open it in Excel and delete it from the spreadsheet and update back into Filevine. If you're doing multiple settlements, but you only do 1 lump sum disbursement, we would use this section here where you're just entering the total settlement amount that you got. Even if you had 3 claims, you're entering in that total here. Or you can also use this one as well. Kind of just depends on how you want it to be organized. Filevine is obviously customizable with endless capabilities, almost endless. So that's the cool thing about it. I hope that answers your question. Not doing partial disbursements, waiting until all claims are settled. Okay, so then you have 2 options. Like I just mentioned, either using this one where you're capturing each claim, and then when we go to build this, we would just use a sum here of all settlements instead of trying to code for an individual or partial distribution. Okay, keep showing me, do I understand? Get paid help from Vine Skills to help me generate it. Yes, absolutely. So Vine Skills, we work on a month-to-month, no contract type of basis, and we work on like a block structure, so you can choose how much time you want to have with us each month, and you would essentially work with likely one optimizer. So myself, Jasmine, we have Jackie Tilton on as well. She's the Vine Skills optimizer. I think that's all of us on here. But essentially, you sign up with us. We start on the first of the month, and you can tell us what your priorities are, what things you want worked on. If you want a fusion like this, if you want DocGens, we also do task flows, reminder schedules, deadline chains. We help you restructure your sections if you need it. Anything that you need to optimize your Filevine to help you leverage it and use it, get the most out of it. What is an optimizer? We are working with Jen on setting up our Filevine. Is she the same? Yes, Jen is awesome. She is the same thing. Optimizer is just our overall role, our job title. We're helping you optimize Filevine. We do have some different, I don't know what, we're all one big team, but we have some people that focus on new folks just starting out with Filevine, getting them to launch and using. And then we have firms that have been using Filevine for years and just need some cleanup or assistance using it to its fullest capability.
And I put both Zoe and my emails in the chat. So if you all want further information, you can always feel free to reach out. I'll also put the Vine Skills website so that you all can check out kind of the services that we offer, see what works for your firm, and then go from there. And
absolutely.
Do you have tips for using merge fields, if then logic in DocGens?
Ooh. So Word DocGens are tricky and the merge fields look a little bit different. Let me pull that one back up that I had. So when you generate the field list, at the very bottom, there's some codes that you can use. Let's load that again. And there are definitely, so we had someone on our team that previously worked at Filevine, and he was a product developer there, and he built out this merge field assistant for us as Vine Skills. So we have that ability to easily make those kind of fields for you guys. But there is a way around it. So when this loads, I'll give that a second, see what other questions we have from Eric. Individual settlements, IUM. Derek, DocGens can definitely live within that collection item. So if you have like a switch in there that says this is our final settlement amount, we can then have the DocGen widget contingent on that, or even a drop down option or something like that to have the widget create and be able to generate that settlement statement from there.
And Fusion work a little bit differently than DocGens because you are pulling in from multiple collection sections. It doesn't have those same like limitations. So even if you're pulling in from those different collection sections, it can live in a static section and still be able to pull those fine.
Mm-hmm. Or vice versa, it can live in a collection section and pull it fine as well because it's a report fusion. Okay, so back on this DocGen, I'm going to search because I don't want to scroll. We have some Booleans down at the bottom. And so down here, there are some different versions of things that you can manipulate your field codes with. So you can adjust the date, and it shows you what the output is going to look like over here. You can adjust, like if you have a string of numbers, for example, social security number, but you only want to show the last 4, you can use this kind of editing as well. You have the option to capitalize, title case, or lowercase. And then filtering here would give you multiple line output. And then down at the bottom, very bottom, you have your Boolean. So you can say show true or false, or yes or no kind of thing. If the field name equals this word, then show it, or if it contains a word, then show it, kind of thing like that. Does that answer your question, Caroline? I was saying, so if you work with us and we're doing your DocGens, we have the ability to use our merge field assistant. And this is just our team, but something that we have. So for example, the way we use this is if you're using a he, she, or they, or them, or anything like that, we can use a code. So I can choose a preset that he pre-built for us. And I can say show his, her, or their based on what was entered in the client contact card for their gender. So that would take us back into the project here. Whatever is entered on additional info in the gender field, it would be based off of this. Then I can pull in a code that says this data, and it would look like this. That's one way to do if-then logic. You're more than welcome to screenshot that if you'd like. I think that merge field assistant is kind of what I was thinking of. I've just been, yes, and it adds a whole sentence instead of, yeah. So this is the kind of formatting. And like I said, if you want to screenshot this, you're doing your own DocGens, because you won't have this merge field assistant, you can replace this and say if it's based on a yes, no. So if this would be your field code for your yes, no field, and you could say if it equals yes, then show this sentence here. Today is Wednesday. Or if your field code here equals no, then show this sentence here. And then whatever is in this last quotation is your default. So if it is unknown, what do you want it to say? So that's kind of how that works. But it would be this format. Good question. I can leave that up. You guys can take a look. Any other questions? Feel free to speak up too. You guys are quiet.
Hi, I do have a question. It relating to my last question about the mass DocGens. So I created a DocGen and I've been doing it individually. I've been going into each person's file and generating the document like you showed a minute ago. But if I do it in mass, based on the report I have, it'll create both of those documents for each person and put it in their documents individually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, using the mass DocGen here, this is just so you're not having to go into every single project and create that DocGen. It's creating it for you automatically based on your report for all projects.
So to only
takes out
be
that-
for the people that are on my report. So if I have 53 people on my report, it's going to do it for each of those only.
Correct. Yep.
Great.
That's where some of that conditional logic, when you go to build your report, will come in handy, because if you just do a full list of projects, it will be for everything on that report. Whereas if you do the criteria for, like, maybe you're just wanting to update for a certain attorney, you can, filter or choose your criteria based on that, for your report to be a little bit smaller.
Okay, so when you are using letterhead up here, so I imagine you're going to insert, actually I think it's this one up here, insert object, or it might be file. Need to freshen up on that. Nope. Field, that's what it is. And then I would go to links and references, include picture, and then do a quotation. And this is where you copy in the URL for your image. And then end with a quotation and hit OK, and it'll put in your image there. As far as formatting, once it's in there, you're able to structure it however you'd like. However, I think that's going to be on more of a document by document basis. We can send you a Loom. Let me find it. Troy, our founder, did a Loom on how to format letterhead URLs. Let me find that actually. And I can put that video in the Zoom chat. He also offers, like, if you need us to save it on our website for you, we can do that as well. Okay. I just put that video in there. That is how to host. Let me see. I don't know if I can find that video where he formatted it. That video shows you how to host it, and he might go over formatting in it. Any other questions? Yeah, I can't see the chat. Oh, the Zoom chat up here. Oh, thank you, Jasmine.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. The first link that I am sharing out to everybody is that Loom Zoe was talking about. The second one is our Vine Skills website. If you were interested in getting additional services or wanting to retain us for kind of DocGen needs, Fusion needs, anything Filevine related needs, including trainings. Maybe you're getting new staff members and you're like, somebody's going to be dedicated to doing DocGens and you want training on that, you can reach out to us and we can get you pricing on all of that. And then I've included mine and Zoe's email in case you do have questions after this, want to know how to retain our services, things like that. Feel free to reach out. Thank you for letting us know that you couldn't see it.
My office highly recommends they have made this form. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you, Nikki. I'll let Jen know. We appreciate those comments.
Yes, thanks so much. And I'm glad we could help you today on free help. Hopefully we got your questions answered.
Don't give her too much praise. It goes to her beautiful head. Her big hair. No, I'm kidding. We love Jen. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any
Good
other
stuff.
questions we could answer for you all? If you had just, we have a few more minutes. So if you all have just general questions, we could answer general non-DocGen related questions about Filevine as well.
Let's see, who do we have here? Paul, any questions? Jordan, Derek, Patty, Hunter, I'll call you out. Stephanie, Sarah, questions?
You mentioned multi-template being more useful. Is there ever a time where a single DocGen is more useful?
I don't think so, to be honest. Even if it's just something, a widget or a doc that you're only intend on uploading one, I would say, I mean, never say never, right? There always might be a time in the future where you would like to add more to it. And like I said, once you use that single widget, you cannot delete that template. You can replace it with a new letter or new document, but you cannot delete it. And I like being able to delete things. I don't want to have that restriction.
And I think as you, like, if your law firm plans to grow, it's an easier option, right? Maybe you have additional documents that you would need to send out because your firm has grown, or maybe you start taking Spanish speakers and some of your documents need to be in Spanish and some need to be in English or a different foreign language, or there needs to be certain things that are changed. It's way easier to just add another document than having to go in and add a completely new button in for the same exact thing. So it's just a way to not have, I feel like it eases your work in the long run, so that if you all do decide to like change or add anything, you have that ability and it's not a headache trying to, you know, edit that button like Zoe mentioned.
Yeah, it kind of plays off of, so Caroline asked, as an optimizer, what is the most common way we've seen firms using Filevine incorrectly or not optimally? That would be an instance. So like if you were to use, we see a lot of firms that use those single DocGen widgets and then they're having to mark them obsolete because they can't be deleted, to then use a multi-widget and condense all the letters into one. So that's one instance. Something else that we see kind of frequently is just not utilizing all of the fields in Filevine and just leaving a lot of blanks. Not filling in the data appropriately, which I think does a disservice to everybody at the firm, because they're not going to be able to take over or take a look or review the case appropriately with all of that data available. No one is able to read your mind if you're the one completing that intake, and just being able to support your team the best that you can by providing all data that you have and putting it into Filevine for everybody to see and use. That's a big one. I see a lot of firms that just don't have a folder structure in place. And so then their document section just gets to be kind of bogged up with everything in one main folder and not really organized. I'm trying to think of what else. I think just being strategic about the way you're building out your sections and planning the location of all the data that's being housed and collected, keeping in mind what documents you plan to create, who the recipient of the document is so that you can code it appropriately, and things like that. Being able to, one thing I do recommend is not having very many project types. Again, this is our sandbox. So yours, I really hope, does not look like this, because that would be a whole mess for you guys to report on your projects. Every single project master case list would have to be a fusion for you if that was the instance. So things like that. Is it possible to get the documents to generate to 2 different folders? No. So when you're coding the document on the back end to pre-designate that file pathway where it saves, it only gives you the option to save to 1 folder. However, you can easily, if you go to documents, you can copy it if you'd like to duplicate it. So we can, if you select the document and go to the 3 vertical ellipses, we can select move or copy. And I could say, I also want this in insurance, and I can copy it. If you move it, that will flat out move it, and it will be in 1 spot only, versus copying will give you a duplicate. Good question. What is a fusion? Ooh, that's a long answer. Okay, so a fusion, Nikki, you know how you're generating a report to do your mass DocGen? You would essentially do the same thing. You're going to start by building a report, and it's likely, like going back to our settlement statement here, you'd want to choose your project type so that you can get more specific list of options up above. And then you're building the report with the specific data. Either it's going to be a report or it's going to be a document. So there's, if it were going to be a settlement statement, that's a document. Or if it's going to be some kind of admin report, your monthly settlement forecast, your marketing forecast or referral forecast or anything like that, to report on your KPIs for the whole org, you can do that as a fusion as well.
They're
After
good.
you generate,
If you're trying to collect items from multiple collection sections, you would use a fusion. Otherwise, you would just, if you're trying to get from different static sections, that's possible in a DocGen. But again, if you're looking to get from like your medicals plus your liens, you would pull a fusion together because there's no other way in Filevine to do that. Sorry, Zoe.
Exactly. No, thank you for clarifying. I jumped right past that. So essentially you'll see here, like we have fusion in the name here. And so this would be a medical section, which is a collection section, a lien section report, another collection section. So I want to fuse that kind of data together. And I build the report first. And then if you have advanced here, you go to report fusion. You can see all of our reports that we've built. If we look at our settlement breakdown that I showed you, on the left here, this shows you all reports that you can choose from. And again, we like to name them specifically so we know what it's being used for. That way nobody messes with that report going forward. And keep in mind, when you create a report, you are the owner of it and you can share it with someone else to view, but nobody else can edit it. They can make a copy of it for themselves so that they're the owner of the copy and edit that version, but nobody can edit yours. So you select your reports you want to fuse together and click save. And then there's another tab over here for template. And this is where you generate your default template and it will give you all of your codes, essentially the same codes that you put in a DocGen. And then I can restructure them into a template. So we'll take a look at that. The settlement breakdown is just a very good example of it. So we generate a template. This is what that template looks like. And each sheet down here on Excel is going to be our medicals, our liens, each essentially report. And then I can take these codes and format them onto a document and then come back into Filevine and replace my template. But it bolds that. Good question. They are very complicated, and I was intimidated even working at Filevine for almost a year. I was very intimidated by fusions for the longest time. And it wasn't probably until, I don't know, just before the new year, I gave myself a goal that I was going to master them. They are complicated but useful. Yeah, very true.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zoe. We're at about time. If you all have questions, definitely, again, feel free to reach out. Our emails are in that chat. And if you're currently working with Vine Skills and you have additional questions, you can reach out to your optimizer, again, or us. We appreciate you all coming in. Hopefully you all learned something. We will have free help again next week. It will be a different topic. So if you all are interested, feel free to join in for that. And if not, hopefully you'll have a great day. And it was a pleasure teaching you all today.
Working, optimizing. It's a pleasure optimizing with all of you.
Have a good one.